Hi, and welcome to TRINKtalks. My name is Paula Rita Sidor. I'm an American-born wine writer, translator, and editor based in Germany, and co-founder of Trink magazine. Today, we are very honored to welcome Marco Simonit to our podcast. Marco is the co-founder and CEO of Simonit Sirch, the internationally acclaimed vineyard consultancy that's done nothing short of revolutionizing grapevine pruning. Hailing from Friuli, Italy, Marco, with his childhood friend Pierpaolo Sirch and their team, has spent 3 decades transforming global vineyard practices. Their gentle pruning method is implemented in over 18 countries by 160 leading wineries, including names like Böcklin Wolf, Keller, Leumer, Gantenbein, and addresses the very critical issue of premature vine decline from harsh conventional pruning. They've elevated pruning into a respected profession, vital for vine health, longevity, and quality, having trained 15,000 staff and established a unique pruning master's degree in Bordeaux. What captivates me most about Marco's work is his vine-side thinking, an approach rooted in respecting the vine's natural form, drawing inspiration from art and architecture as much as traditional agronomy. In this episode, we'll delve into how these principles address challenges like climate change, disease, and vineyard longevity. Marco will also share insights on his educational ventures, like the Simonit Sirch Academy, and his vision for a sustainable viticultural future. Marco, a very warm welcome to TRINKtalks.
I'll just jump in here to say my name is Valerie Cathawala. I'm in New York, and I am the co-host of TRINKtalks with Paula and the co-founder of Trink magazine. But what we're really most excited about is having you here today, Marco. We have so much to learn, so let's dive right in. Your method is described as gentle pruning. Many of our listeners will know some of the basics, but can you take us back to the very beginning? Before you co-founded Simonit Sirch, you were a young agronomist. What were you seeing in the vineyards that made you question the traditional ways of pruning?
Yeah, thank you for the question. My first experience with the viticulturals was in the 1988 with the Association of Wine Growers in Friuli, northeast of Italy, close to the border of Slovenia. And they have, even today, after, many years, they grow a lot of varieties, particularly whites. And some of them was, and it is even today, very sensitive for the trunk disease, particularly Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, even local varieties like Ribolla, Friulano, like Tokai. So this, my perception in the beginning was, to turn around this area and try to assist these vine growers in the farming, general farming. Was a time where I saw a lot of vines with the trunk disease symptoms, and a lot of them was chronic or apoplectic symptoms. So after 2-3 years, the vines was, more, difficult, healthy in terms of production, in terms of expression of the quality of the shoots, and a lot of them did. And these wine growers need to replant the vines with the new vines. And was a problem, and it is a problem. So in this moment, my feeling was, wow, this is a very important and big impact in this area, and I like to understand a little bit more. And, one of my passions since the beginning I grew up in the farming with my grandfather and grandmother. They farm with cows for milk, lot of animals. So we have a small vineyard. But one of my important passions since the beginning was the drawing animals and trees. And when I start to work with this association of the vine growers in Collio area in Friuli, for the first time I start to drawing vines, and particularly the vines with the looks not very good healthy condition. Sometimes they was affected with the trunk disease fungi in the consequences I understand after with the fungi, and the fungi jump in the vine structure with the doors, the wounds, particularly the pruning wounds. But this chapter I understand more late. But in the beginning was this really I become very curious about this, and I start to indagate a little bit more. But this was the start the start of the story, because I never think become a master pruner. I never think to become a man with this feeling with the pruning and shoot selection and try to work for increase the healthy and the longevity and the sustainability of the vines. So was a very strange, but this start for me in the Collio area in Friuli, because I saw a lot of vines with a lot of problems in the trunk disease, and after that I understand this problem uh, come from the bad consequences of the pruning. And in this moment, I understand maybe, I don't know, like we can do something for help the vines in one side and the humans in the other side. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what was the name of the vineyard where sort of the light went on for you? Was there one vineyard in particular? I mean, when I think of artist or drawing, you think in terms of details. And was there one time or place where you said, you know what, I think there's a better way?
No, it was just in the vineyard, where it's not very old vineyard, not very young. It was a middle-aged vineyard. I don't remember exactly the variety. I think was a Pinot Grigio, Pinot Bianco. But was just because in the end of the day, before to go at home, in the end of the day with a quiet situation, I bring my paper and I start to drawing this vine, and after that, I ask to this vine grower if the vine was a little bit weaker, not very healthy, and I said, can I bring this vine just to indicate more and understand if there are some consequences of the wounds? Because during the drawing, you go into the details, and you can draw in the trunk, the arms, the shoots, and all the structure of the vine. You can understand very well. You can feel with the present, the moment, but you can have also feel with the story. So the feel was to saw a lot of wounds come from the past, and I said, wow, because when looks like dry, what happened inside the structure of the vine? Is it this the consequences maybe of this situation come from the pruning wounds, come from the desiccation cones and the after the wounds. So it was a lot of things in my mind, and I bring this vine and go to the carpenter because there are not a tack for check the structure inside the vine. Even today we don't have a tack, but we develop a lot of experience for understand what happened inside. But I do a lot of sections in the years in the did vines for understand a lot of things come from the pruning wounds. But in this day was a very particular day for me because I opened the eyes. I was shocked with the carpenter. We opened the vine and we discovered a world inside, a lot of brown colored wood, a lot of spongy texture, like a fungi deterioration, smell like a porcini, and a small piece of white lines wood where the only one still alive. I was shocked because I said, wow, it is difficult to imagine the vine still stronger, healthy, alive with this structure. What is this? And nobody speak about this in the schools, in the university. It was in 1988, no internet, no mobile phones, difficult to have information in real time. So in this moment, changed my life because I said, I don't know why, but was shocked and said, I would like to go deep in this and understand what is this and where come from this. And maybe, again, I don't know, we can try to save the vines, to increase the longevity, the durability, the productive performance. And I don't know, but I was completely confused and know a lot of things, but very confusion things. But this was the moment to change my life.
Making sense of it would take the next 30 years, right?
That's incredible. Marco, you say that your philosophy is to begin by respecting the vine. And I think what you just said explains where that approach comes from. Can you talk a little bit about how that sort of, quote, vine side thinking translates into what you do every day?
I always try to suggest to the people who work in the fields or the people love to stay in the fields. First of all, try to learn for observation. Observe what you have in front of you. Apparently, when you see the vineyard around the world, the vines looks in the group of the vineyard looks similar each other, but there are everyone looks and it is different. Even if you have the same clone, the same rootstock, but the reaction of the vine in her life, in the time, become always different. Okay? So for understand the character of each vine, you need to develop the observation. So you need to use your eyes, your experience, observe details, the main structure, secondary structure, the character of the shoots, diameter of the shoots, the color of the leaves. You need to observe what you have in front of you. In winter time, in springtime, in summertime, I suggest always, hey guys, you need to spend time in the fields. In this kind of approach, you need to stay with your vines. Spend time in the fields, in the different seasons, in the different hours of the day. So you need to have a feeling and develop your observation. After this, you can do the action. So first observation and after action. And you need to develop your feeling. And this is very important to the humanism in the field. Humans knows the place because they live there. They know the soil, they know the terroir, they know the weather, they know the reaction of the vines. So you need to become to increase the humanism in the fields. Even the creativity of the humans, the creativity increase when you increase your observation. If you increase your observation into details, into every season, you can increase your creativity. You can have more interaction with the vines. So you need to develop more feeling. It is not enough to do. A lot of people say that I do organic farming, I do biodynamic farming. Okay, cool, very good. But it's not the end of the story. It's part of the story. But we need to develop feeling with the lieu. We say it in Francais, with the lieu. In English, we say terroir, place, And this is important. So observation, action. And this is, very important. And you can translate this in everywhere, even with other kinds of plants, animals, humans, and a lot of things. So I suggest always to do this approach.
That is beautiful advice. Thank you. And very much from an artist's perspective, as it's not just jumping ahead, but really taking the time to get to know, to introduce yourself, to understand what's happening before you step in and want to change it. One of the things that I find really interesting is that when most people think of pruning, they think about cutting something back. They think about restricting or lessening. But your method really emphasizes allowing the vine to develop more living wood and follow its natural tendency to branch out. How do you help wine growers see the benefits of this approach, which might seem that it's about less restriction, less cutting, not more?
The vine in the nature, the vine in the nature, it's a creeper. Do you know what I mean, a creeper? Okay. So this is very important to know what is the nature, because the farming, it is not natural. I don't like to say it, natural viticulture, natural, farming. Doesn't exist natural farming. But, in my opinion, doesn't exist natural wine, because you need to do by humans, and to use some practices for make the grapes to make wine. So it is not natural, okay? But you can stay more close to the nature of the vines in this case. If you know the nature of the vine, the morphology, the anatomy, the origin, and what is the character of the vine in terms of life, you can understand a lot of things. So it is important to try to build enough live wood to increase the quantity of the nutrients, because inside the live wood you can increase the nutrients, the storage. You can feel more energy. The vines follow you very fast. Even the vines with the bad pruning practices, the bad storytelling, hard storytelling, if you change it, you become more gentle with them, they follow you very fast. And you can feel this in the reaction. You can feel more homogeneity develop shoots, more regular, and bud break in the springtime. You can feel homogeneity phenological states in terms of flowering, ripening. You can feel more homogeneity, morphology of the grapes. You can feel different because the vines can have a good reaction in terms of growing, in terms of resistance, in terms of become more resilient with the climate evolution, and they can become more integrate in the terroir where they are if they have not only the roots, but you need to have a good vascular system from the roots to the trunk to the arms to the shoots, leaves, and back. And this, you can help the vines, you can build this. The humans can help the vines in this to build a better vascular system. If you have a better vascular system, you can have a better way for the water. They can use better, even if the water, there is not a lot available during the summertime, or because they are in terroirs where we don't have a lot of water available. If you have a good, proper vascular system, the vines can be used better, the water available in the soil, or the water come from the humidity, or I don't know what. And if they have more live wood, they have more nutrients, so they resist much better in terms also of they suffer less, and they have less risk for the trunk disease. So if you use the good pruning practices and the good shoot selection and canopy management, because it's not only pruning practice, it's very important also the work, what do you do in the springtime, in summertime, you can feel immediately reaction of the vine. So it is easy for the vine growers to have a feeling of the benefits very soon. Do you know what I mean?
It's I couldn't ask for a better bridge into our next question. As you know, the Trink audience tends to focus on Northern Italy, Switzerland, Germany, and Austria, all regions where you do a fair amount of work. But could you talk a little about the specific challenges and adaptations in many of these cooler, sometimes very steep European vineyards, as opposed to, say, some of the warmer climates?
Thank you for the question. The important is if you like to imagine and to have also the vines with a dynamic adaptation in the terroir character in terms of soil, weather, climate evolution, you need to have this to try to find tailor-made solutions. It is not a recipe. So if you are in the cool climate or you are in the warm climate, there are for sure completely different architectures, completely different density of plantation, because normally where you have a more warm climates and less, for example, water available, the density normally is less. The architecture looks different. They are more in according with this character of the terroir. But if you compare this in the north, where you have more cooler climate, more rain, and you have, for example, other risks for the vines, healthy, and all the consequences of this, you have for sure other architectures. For sure, you need to adapt the architectures in according with the terroir and where you are, but you have the same concept, because for try to help your vines, you need to develop structure, arms, branching, So dynamic evolution of the architecture. Even if you are in the warm climate or in the cooler climate, for sure you have different density, different architecture, but you need to build the tailor-made solution architecture, but you need to branch, respect the subflow, increase the live wood, increase the nutrients, increase the resistance of the vine. So for sure, the higher of the trunks, looks different when you are in the warm area or you are in the cooler area. The variety, the genetic, sometimes looks completely different. I said the density, the number of the vines per hectare, looks completely different. And also the canopy management, you need to have the tailor-made solution. But it's very important to try to build always the architecture in according with the terroir and the place where you are and genetic character. But of course, there are different, but you need to respect the morphology, the anatomy, and the functionality of the vine. So if you increase the vascular system quality, the quantity of the live wood, the storage inside, you can have for sure vines more adaptable in the climate where they live. Even if the architecture is completely different, and it is completely different, it is normal. And doesn't exist the formula, this is the best architecture in the world. No. Always we need to find a tailor-made solution, artisanal approach, observe where you are, character of the soil, genetic, storytelling, traditional approach, and after try to understand in the middle of this what you can do for help the vines to become more healthy, longevity, productive, and blah, blah, blah. For sure, it is important, the human side, you need to help the humans to jump in this approach because it is not very, now it is more easy. But when I started 35 or 36 years ago, it was very difficult. And now it's more easy, but you need to help a lot the humans to understand this. And we need to help a lot the humans, particularly in the VSP, vertical shoot position trailing system, to try to build dynamic architecture of the vines. So this is very important. So dynamic approach of the humans try to build dynamic architecture of the vines. So it's not static. One of the main problems I saw is the geometrical compounds. The higher of the wire, the distance between the rows, the higher of the post. These geometrical things come from the humans. And if the humans become too much rigid, even if you are in the warm area or you are in the cooler area, become a problem for the vines. So, first of all, the humans need to become more dynamic. Not only biodynamic, but himself dynamic. You know what I mean?
That's so fascinating. Before I go into my next question, maybe just a question. How much time does the development of that observation and response take? I mean, how much time can you or your team spend in a vineyard before you can begin to advise about practices?
Thank you for the question. It is not, difficult to say 1 day, 1 month, 6 months. It's sometimes when I jump in the first time in the area, in the new area. For example, I remember when Roderer Champagne, for example, called me and said, "Hey, can you help us, please, just to understand if our approach, traditional, this makes sense after, I don't know, many years, or we can have an evolution?" Okay, first of all, please given me the time for observe what it is around, what character you can feel in the area, what is the traditional approach in the area of the vine growers. And you need to spend time for understand this traditional way, why they developed this from the story, the character of the genetic, the productive goals, soils, and say, okay, and now I understand because you think in the past to develop this architecture, and now I can also check more deep and say maybe we can have an evolution in this piece of the architecture for reduce this risk and help the vines in this way. So you need to, the first time when you jump in the new area, you need time. It's difficult to say 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month, but need time. When you develop your experience in some areas around the world, you start to increase your informations, your data, your feelings, and you can have maybe some tailor-made answer solutions, or you can help in the maybe also in not like, let me say, not fast, but we don't need to spend a lot of time because we know before the situation of the area, and after, of course, you need to understand the family approach, the character of the vigneron, the character of the family style, and after you can also go more into details. But, depends. It is not a recipe for, say, 1 day, 1 hour, or 1 week, or 1 month. It depends. It's difficult to say this. But anyway, I suggest always our approach is tailor-made solution. So for find tailor-made solution, you need to develop the observation, got data, and take your time before to say something, learn from the people in the area, observe what they do, and after you can maybe help them to find some solution. Because sometimes you say, wow, we do this since, I don't know, 200 years, and one fuck Italian guy come who said, okay, but maybe you can do this. Yeah, it makes sense. But why we don't think never about this? Yeah, even if you come in my house or and say, oh, I'm sure you can suggest me something. And I say, wow, bravo. Thank you for your suggestion. We need to share. We need to have a sharing experience. I always believe in the sharing experience. And we can, increase our knowledge, increase this. So it's always important to share the experience, to become very open. I not secrets. I wrote 2 books. I built the digital platform online courses, but all my knowledge I share with the people every day. I'm not scared to say, oh, I have secrets. No. I will like to share my experience, and I like to learn from the people. And this for me is super important for every day grow up and increase our data, information, experience. But we need to give it our experience, and after we can also bring a lot of information from the people. So sharing.
That's beautiful. I think that reciprocity really pays off in the success of your approach. We know you work with some of the most respected estates in Germany and Austria and around the world. Without revealing any specific advice you give to them, what would you say are some of the most urgent viticultural challenges or issues that you observe generally in these 2 countries?
I said before, for me, one of the most important you just say limits is the geometrical compounds. The geometry, particularly in the Germans, let me say, areas in Germania, Austria, Luxembourg, Belgium, they are very, the geometrical compounds, they are very, very respectful. And they build amazing vineyards. So if you turn around with the car you can see, wow, looks perfect, the lines. But I always say, they say, okay, guys, you great. You have an incredible terroir, and amazing wines, blah, blah, blah. But if you like also to try to help your vines and try to make also wines with more character, because the vines can become more longevity, consistency productive, blah, blah, blah. You need to jump a little bit off of the geometries. What do you mean? Okay, you can use the tractor, you can use machines, you can use everything, but try, please, to find an evolution of the architecture of the vine, even in the line. But doesn't matter the higher of the wire. If you like the wire, we can move. Really? We can move the wire? Of course, you can move the wire. You can put the wire 10 centimeters more higher after 20 years, and you don't need to cut 10 centimeters less the vine. Oh, yeah, this is true. And if you need 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters of canopy, what is your heritage? The posts, the wires, or the vine? Of course, the vines. Okay, we can change the posts and put the post with the 20 centimeters more higher. And so if you jump out a bit of the geometrical approach, and try to adapt even the structure, like posts, wires, in according with the age and the evolution of the architecture of the vine in the time. It is not make sense to keep the position of the wires and the higher of the posts when you plant the vineyards and keep the same position, the same higher after 20 years when the vines have, if they survive for 20 years, 20 years old. You can show me your pants when you have 5 years old and now you have 40 years old. Can you put in your pants when you have, show me please. I say, no, but what do you think? No, it's sorry, it's a joke, but just to have easy to understand each other. No, you can feel this. It makes sense. It is makes sense. Yeah, I think I know it is makes sense. So, but I say the Germans, but believe me, I love the German people because they are amazing, and this is everywhere in the world. This is everywhere in the world. Okay, just because we are more today focused about German's countries, but believe me, everywhere in the world.
Well, people have a terroir too. It's just usually called culture, and these things are very much ingrained in all of us. Speaking as a transplant myself, it's I can say that I've had to do more adapting than I might otherwise have done. And speaking of adapting, you developed your technique approximately 30 years ago, maybe a little more. How has the method itself evolved over time? Are there things that you teach differently now as compared to when you started? You were talking about dynamic and exchange and learning. What have you learned, and how has your approach changed? I'm assuming that it did.
The beginning was it is technical, of course, but I myself and the team we were more focus on the technical details in terms of, okay, guys, try to make small ones. Please not make big ones. Try to make wounds in the wood of 1 or 2 years old. If you make wounds in the wood with the more of 3 years old or more, try to use the respected wood for reduce the development of desiccation cone. Please respect the corona, the basal crown position for try to damage the diaphragm and so stop the desiccation cone and keep more life. Respect the safflow and was branching, was this very focus on this. After this, just because we learn day by day everywhere, and we are very lucky to work in a lot of countries with a lot of amazing producers and people around the world. I try my focus become and evolution was about I become dynamic. I try to be more dynamic. It is not easy because myself also do a lot of mistakes, of course. But I always try to do the best, and so you can do mistakes every day. But the dynamic approach and dynamic architecture is the last frontier for me. So I don't like to speak about which kind of trellis system you have, which kind of. I'm a Guyot, like for example, just to stay in Germania, Guyot simple or double, or cordon, or are you in Bordeaux, in Medoc? We have double Guyot Medocaine. Are you in Champagne? Yeah, we have the Chablis for Chardonnay, we have Cordon Royal for Pinot Noir. Are you in Bourgogne? Yeah, we have the Guyot, Burgundy Guyot, classic, Poussard. Okay, this is for me a little bit limit, but I respect this because they have stories. Everybody has stories. But for me, the next approach, the next nomenclature, it's like what do you have? I try to have the dynamic architecture of my vines. But which kind of trellis system you use? Okay, I'm in VSP, but I'm start like more or less something like, I don't know, this. But after 15 or 20 years, I switch because the dynamic evolution, I switch from double Guyot to a little bit looks like a bush vine in the line, can follow me. I can show you this dynamic evolution. Or I start with the Guyot, but after 40 years, my vines looks like a cordon because they finish the space in the lateral side, and I start to use this space in the vertical side. So play with the space available in the time. So the architecture become dynamic and the change in the life of the vine more times. So for me, this is the next evolution, and a lot of great producers start in the last years to do this, and we have a lot of amazing examples to see of this. So you can understand the dynamic architecture of the vines. What is your trailing system? My trailing system is dynamic architecture for my vines. What do you mean? It looks different. When they are younger, they look like babies, and after they build a strong trunk, and after they build one arm or two, and after 20 years, I have this kind of evolution because the distance between the vine, I estimate after 20 years, I don't have more space. So for avoid problems and for avoid to to go back into the main structure with the big damage for the vines, I find an evolution in another space available. Which one? Which kind of other space? Yeah, I use my lateral space and now I use my vertical. I use my oblique space. I change my posts. But you reduce your canopy. Of course. I can reduce, maybe become interesting with the evolution of the climate. If not, you can change the post. You prefer change the post or change your vineyard after 20, 50 years, and you keep your vineyard for 45, 50 or 60 years. Let me know. Depends which kind of goal you have in your life. And these things help a lot to do some different, and it works very well, even in Bourgogne. When I start to work in Bourgogne with, for example, Alou Bis-Leroy, Domaine Leroy, she's an amazing woman. She's and one of the incredible women I met in my life. And she's very brave and smart. And when she called me, they said, you know, I'm a little bit worried because we have a lot of vines. They need to replant the new vines and the middle of the orders. All the Bourgogne, but it's not only Bourgogne, even in Bordeaux, even in Champagne, there's a problem for everybody. And okay, I said, stop to cut your vines to respect the position of the wires. We need to change the position of the wire. And if you like, we can also change the posts. But you can imagine in Bourgogne, they have between 9,000 to 10,000 vines per hectare. So 1 meter distance between the rows, 1 meter distance between the vines, more or less, okay? And all the posts there are very not higher. There are 1 meter and 10 centimeters or 1 meter or a little bit. And I said, we can change the post, for example, and put the post much higher and say, what do you think? Is it make sense? For me, it is makes sense. And she tried in the one vineyard behind the cellar 1 year. I don't know, was 17 or 18. And the year next, she said to me, do you know, I need to speak with you. Okay, I said, wow, what happened now? She's very, disciplined woman, and said, do you know what? I decided to change all the posts in all the vineyards and change all the machines because my heritage is the vines are my heritage, not the post and not the machines. My wine come from my vines. I like to keep my vines healthy and productive because the character of my wine come from this, and I'd like to keep this heritage. So we changed all the posts, and she changed all the posts in all her vineyards and machines. So this is just an example, extreme example for say, okay, but you can feel if you go in Bourgogne, in Vaux-Romanée, you can check immediately. This is the vineyards of Alou Bis-Leroy because the posts there are more higher. But a lot of people follow now, and I'm happy because we need some brave examples sometimes and check what happened and said. In the beginning, the people said, she's crazy. She's, and after they understand that a lot of them follow this, just to have a dynamic evolution. This is not too much rigid.
Yes, I think that the value of some brave path blazers is a really good one. Coming back to something you were just talking about, age of vines, I'm really curious, what are some of the oldest vines, especially if you can think of in Germany and Austria, some of the oldest vines you or your team have worked with, and what did you learn from them?
To be honest, I always learn in the different situations because every day we can learn a lot. But I'm also today very impressive with the Swiss vignerons, particularly from Vaud. I'm impressive with the what you say, they are the masters. They are very masters because they develop a very tailor-made architecture, different architecture in according with the place and the genetic, of course. But I saw one of the most excited and beautiful old vine sculptures in Swiss. You can feel this if you go to visit. There are very incredible and very producing the steep, also very steep areas. And you can feel, for example, amazing bush vines with the spiral evolution of the arms. So they follow the safflower, they look like snakes. They turn around in the spiral evolution. They respect the safflower. They reduce the speed of the hire because they do the spiral. And there are amazing sculptors. So just an example jump in my mind. But there are a lot, of course, because we learn a lot from the old vines around. And the old vines inspire me a lot, always. Since the beginning, because when I try to find some solutions for this change, also the pruning approach, I was inspired a lot with the old vines, and I'm always fascinated, and I have an attraction for the old vines because I can learn always a lot. So yeah.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. Does it take longer to change the story of an older vine than a younger one?
Depends. Depends how. If the old vines, there are sometimes they have a very strong art story, and sometimes become very difficult to recover them. Normally, the young or the middle age, for me, middle age, it is normally until 30 years or more, So when they have you can, if you have the vitality, if you have a part of the trunk, a part of the structure alive, because sometimes the old vines, they have a very hard story. They have very few lines of live wood, and this become sometimes difficult to help them. So I don't have an answer for say, but depends. You need to check. But for sure, even if you have vines with big problems, but they stay alive. Of course, if they don't have big problems with the disease in terms of also virus or fungi or other things in the structural way, normally you can help, because as soon as you increase the quantity of live wood, the vines have a fast reaction. Believe me, you can feel the reaction even in the after one season, when you do the pruning in winter, the shoot selection, the canopy management, and you feel the energy even in the same season and in the next season better, of course. So you can feel incredible reaction even with the vines. You say, oh wow, this is very difficult to do something. No, never say never, because the vines are very resilient. And so I suggest always to try to do something. Of course, the younger or middle age sometimes become a little bit more, let me say, not easy, but more opportunities to have more live wood, because potentially it's incredible. I saw a lot of times to make amazing, incredible, characterful wines come from young vines. And I saw a lot of times to make not very good wines come from old vines. The effect and the consequences of the domestication, the human domestication, when the humans don't have a lot of time to build year after year a negative impact in the structure of the vine, because they prune every year for the farming. The shoot selection every year. So every year you can help the vine, or every year you can, reduce the energy, increase the risks for the vine. So sometimes you feel, okay, the vines, there are older, in the older vines, you cannot produce enough quantity. Of course, you can make good quality and character of the grapes and wines, but if you take care of the vines, you can have a good quantity production even with the old vines, and they make an amazing wines. And of course, even in the in the first years, they can do also the amazing results, because the consequence of the domestication is just start. And the humans don't have enough time to have a damage. The worst time, the big risk for the vines is the middle age. When the humans have time, 10, 12 years or more, if you have not a good approach for 10, 12 years, you reduce the vascular system, you reduce the live wood, you increase the dead wood, you reduce the nutrients, the quality of the water conductivity, they increase the risk of the trunk disease, fungi, or other things like this. And you can show this more common between 10 and 15 years. Often I saw this. In one side, in the other side is also a good time for try to normally help the vine. Okay, I understand this doesn't work. Okay, change the approach and try to help your vines, and you have for sure a good opportunity and a good percentage of the results for try to have a good goals. But do you know what I mean? So it's depends. It's a very, we need to check everything in the tailor-made.
That's one of the things that I find so exciting and really sort of convinced me was when I was talking with at least one winemaker, and he was so excited to show me one vine in the middle of his field. It was in the Pfalz, and he was so excited. He said, "You wouldn't believe the state that this vine was in and where it is now." And he showed me that there was more or less a hole in the middle where you had worked with it, and it had come back together, and you could visually see the healing that had happened and see the belief that had come from the winemaker as well, that he was finding faith and belief in this vine again, and it had convinced him and certainly convinced me. So that's the dynamic process I find so fascinating, in that the vine learns, the winemaker learns. There's really a give and a take process that happens. And thinking a little bit about give and take, just I know that we're running over a bit, so I really appreciate you keeping the time here, is when it comes to the academy, both online and in person, what has been for you the most rewarding part of establishing these educational platforms and seeing people learn this skill? And how is digital education, which really wasn't there when you started and certainly is now. How has digital education changed the vineyard management?
Sometimes in the nature, the vines, even without farming, they have some accidents in the main structure. Okay? So you can feel, even in the nature, I saw creepers, vines creepers, with the damage in the trunks, with the storms or a part of trunk of the tree cut, a part of the vine structure. And the anatomy of the vine, they can, first of all, if the vine have a wound, they abandon the part dead in the consequences of the wound. In the years and years, they reject the dead wood of the main structure. And you feel like a wall, like the empty wall in the middle of the trunk. When we saw vines touched with the trunk disease like ISCA, and thank you to Denis de Bourdier, professor in Bordeaux, he passed away some years ago, and he called me in the beginning in Bordeaux for try to do something together, for try to help the wineries for reduce the impact of the trunk disease, particularly in Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc. And one day he said to me, "Hey Marco, we need to go in Sancerre because there are some vine growers. They use the chainsaw for try to remove the wood touched with the trunk disease, and we need to go to check this." Okay, we go to check this. The anatomy, and I was impressive because the anatomy of the vine is not like other trees. The anatomy of the structure in terms of vascular structure, it is not like other trees. This is unique in terms of anatomy structure of the vine. If you use, for example, the surgery for remove some, parts touched with the trunk disease and for reduce the toxins, and the toxins have a big impact in the vines, and they become chronic or apoplectic, and the vines can also dead. They can have a benefit because the part of the vine still alive, they have an amazing cicatrization, but it is in the long way. It's not in this way. It's in the vertical way, and this is looks like the natural reject of the vines when they have a quantity of dead wood inside, and they reject, and the part of the trunk become empty, and you feel the side of the rest of the trunk full of live wood, and they resist for years and years. So it looks like a little bit impressive, but works very well if you know to do this. But of course, again, you need to observe, to develop the skills for make the surgery in the proper way. But we can, and we save a lot of vines touched with the trunk disease. Instead to pulling out and replanting a new one, we try to help the vine with this kind of cure, like the dentist remove the caries, the dents is the same, and you can keep your vines for years and years and years without remove and plant another one. I saw sometimes it looks a bit dramatic impact, but I know, but this is like sometimes we need some surgery for try to help our body, and this the same for try to help the vines to instead to remove completely. This is the important thing, and this is for me one of the savoir-faire, the knowledge, the viticultural, the vigneron, viticulturists need to develop also in his skills. So prevention, first of all, and cure if you need to try to cure for reduce the risk of pulling out the vines. Sorry for this, but it was important for me to describe a bit the wine surgery. About the online Simonit Sirch Academy, online courses or in person, I think the mix online, offline is the best solution, because during the COVID, before the COVID, we developed a lot of schools around the world in physical presence. Okay, the first school, pruning school, was in 2009 in Italy, and after a lot of schools in different regions with a lot of institutes or universities make the joint venture to build pruning schools in different regions. We developed this in a lot of places around the world. But one of my dreams was, okay, I would like to share our experience with the community of the people working in the fields around the world. And during the COVID, we said, okay, why not? We can start to build a digital platform, online courses. And we work very hard for build this, because that was easy. And even today, with a lot of courses inside in different levels. So you can bring the, general but good and enough deep informations. Of course, if you need to develop tailor-made approach, you need to go in physical. So for our tailor-made consultancy, we need to go personally. But if the people like to jump in this world and know the general things, but enough deeper, and they can follow the online courses, and after they can go into our schools in different places in the world and got the exams and do the practical sections, so they can integrate. But also this is important because we build a community. We started during the COVID. Today there are, I think, 17,000 or 18,000 subscriptions come from 48 countries in the world. And this is a community, because also they send photos, message, and they said, can you help me with this? Do you have information with this? So this is a community. For me, it's very interesting mix. And they can choose also, they can bring online courses, and after say, I like to do the practical section in Italy or in Germany or in Spain or I don't know, whatever. And it's nice because they can mix and they can travel, they can learn. For me, it's amazing. It's an amazing experience.
I just have one final question. What is for you the most indispensable tool that you bring into the vineyards that is perhaps not your pruning shears?
You need to focus and use your eyes for observe and develop your sensibility. But it's important, again, just say it before, use your eyes for the observation and bring notes. I suggest always to make drawings, because it's important to have the feeling with the drawing. If you're drawing something, you can also develop your curiosity, and you can also check after during the rainy days. I don't know, you go to check what you're drawing, the notes you bring in the vineyards. So for me, the important is use your eyes, stay in the fields, stay close to your vineyards, don't touch your vines, feel the body of your vines. This is very important, very, very important. And you can understand and develop a lot of things. And you can appreciate the evolution of the structure of the vine. You need to touch. That's not. We need to go very. This is the relation between humans and vines. This is farming, but you need to feel like when you love your animals, you love your plants. You need to love your vines and understand what they have in your terroir. You need to stay in the vineyards with this sun, with this rain, when it is cold, when it's warm, in the different parts of the day. You need to stay. And also, one of the limits today in the world is the human, um, uh, um, we need help to have more people to come for work in the fields, work with the manual work in the fields. So need people with knowledge. We need to increase the educational approach. I suggest always the wineries, hey guys, today it is not enough if you are good wine grower, good winemaker, you have a good wine and good result in the market. You need also to become teacher. You need to teach people, come for help you, and try to build the good didactic program for help the people to help you in the good way. Because today it's a big problem. The knowledge, the savoir-faire, the skills of the people, because a lot of people, there are seasonal workers. So they come to help in particular part of the season of the year, in the winter for pruning, in the spring for shoot selection, canopy management, harvest time, and after they leave. But we need to also teach all these people to try to have a good approach, because they have an action in your vines. So they need to know the character of the vines, your vines, what they need to do, why this, because use this and not this, because do this. So we need to invite the wineries to invest in time and money in the educational for try to, to reduce the risks for the vines, because the consequences for the vines is very important. And if the people, they don't have enough skills, everybody like to do the best when they come for help for some work in the part of the season, but they need to know what to do. And sometimes they don't have enough skills. So we need to invest for teach them and build some approach for have a consistency training and coaching for the people come to help you. Even because the people change. This year, somebody come to help you. Next year, maybe there are other people come to help you. But so this is the real situation. So we need to consider this, and I think we have a lot of job to do in this way.
That I can't think of a better way to end that. Thank you. Thank you. This has been truly an incredibly insightful conversation, and it's clear that the health and the longevity of our vineyards are in excellent hands with people like you leading the way, sharing, learning. So thank you for your passion and your wisdom, and for sharing that all with us and our TRINKtalks listeners. You can find out more information about Marco's work at simonitsirch.com and the Simonit Sirch Academy. And join us next time for TRINKtalks.
Thank you.
Thank you.